All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. We're going to talk about a position group that I think is going to be incredibly competitive this summer. Coming up next. We'll get into it. We'll break it all down. Which position group do I think looks to be the most competitive of almost any this summer at Niner Camp? We'll hit that next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get the Pig in a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get the brisket chili, the pulled pork, the barbecue chicken. It's all amazing. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this video is also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove along the Monterey Peninsula. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. All right, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. We're in the OTA period. So we went from the post-draft rookie minicamp to the voluntary minicamp. The next one will be the mandatory minicamp. And then the 49ers will have a 40-day break until training camp begins in the middle of July. And then, of course, it's on. But we're already getting an indication of how things are going to go, or at least how the roster looks coming out of, there's still maybe a couple more moves to be made. Niners could pick up a free safety. They could pick up a tight end. They could pick up an extra defensive lineman, maybe an offensive lineman. There's still potential to add new players, but for the most part, not just the 49ers, every team in pro football, they've done all the heavy lifting. They've had the draft. They've had the undrafted free agents coming out of college. They've signed all those guys. They've signed the veteran free agents. And now it's really just about, a guy here or there. There's still some good players out on the market. For the most part, teams are just left to tinkering with the roster. Well, the one spot for the 49ers that I think is going to be incredible to watch this summer is tight end. George Kittle is a great player. And there's no question he's an all-pro type talent. He's a consistent Pro Bowler. He's really good in all phases. He's really good as a blocker in the run game, and he's a very dangerous receiver as well. So he undoubtedly is the 49ers' number one tight end. But what this offseason has indicated is that there's going to be turnover at this position. Charlie Warner departed in free agency. The blocking tight end, the former Georgia Bulldog, goes back to his roots, right? He played at Georgia and he signed with the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm sure Charlie's happy to be back in a part of the country that is familiar to him. So he's now an Atlanta Falcon. And then to make matters worse, or at least to further the turnover at the tight end spot, Ross Dwelley joined him. So now they're both in Atlanta. So, Dwelley's was more of the receiver, not really a blocker. Warner was much more of a blocker, not much of a receiver. So according to our good friend Cam Inman of the San Jose Mercury News, second-year tight end Braden Willis is making a case for that tight end 2 job this year. He was a 7th-round pick last year out of Oklahoma. He was the second tight end the Niners drafted. They actually drafted Cam Latu out of Alabama in the 3rd round. And then Latu spent his rookie season recovering from surgery to repair a torn ACL. And Willis got experience and some special teams play and basically didn't play at all on from scrimmage. So between, even though the Niners drafted Latu and Willis, neither of them really got much run from scrimmage as rookies. And we go into year 2 kind of undefined as far as what's Willis as a player, what's Latu as a player. I had a chance to talk to Brian Fleury, the tight end coach, this last week, and I started off talking about Latu, and he says he's rehabbing, and that I said, what's the strength of Cam's game? And he said, well, he's an all-around player, so he's, when he's healthy and right, he should be able to help them as a flexed out tight end, almost like a receiver. And then he's also a strong inline blocker. So they still have a lot of hope for Latu. And if there's one player that I thought looked just kind of mentally overwhelmed last year, and it kind of bled into other aspects of his game, it was Latu. He just looked like he was thinking at all times, and he wasn't reacting, and he just was playing a little slow. And his hands, I think, are much better than what he showed last year, and I expect him to be worlds better this summer in camp. But it is interesting. Willis, Willis definitely, according to some of the coaches, is really, this is a guy they really liked for a lot of reasons. He was a culture player for them. When I say that, what I mean is the Niners gave him one of their gold helmet designations, despite the fact that he was a day 3 pick, 7th round pick. They liked him. They liked his personality. They liked his toughness. They liked his physicality. They liked him as a player, but they also liked him as a person and as a locker room fit. And they felt like they don't give the gold helmet designation out easily. I believe Lynch said there was only 16 or 17 gold helmets in this entire draft this year, and they wouldn't tell us who they were. But I would expect Braden Willis is going to get quite a bit better. They also signed the veteran free agent Eric Saubert, who potentially could step in if Willis and Latu don't make that step forward in year 2. There's also the former Cal Bear, Jake Tungs, is here and in camp. And then, to me, the sleeper of the group is the Furman rookie, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Furman, the former Ferris State basketball player, Mason Pline. And he's definitely an under the radar guy. And we'll see. We'll see if he makes it to the practice squad. But I think Pline is definitely in line for that tight end 2 position. Obviously, Cam believes that Braden Willis is going to be the tight end 2. We'll see. I mean, Pline is 6'8" and has 10-inch hands, is in a mechanical engineering major, pretty athletic. When I asked, Brian Fleury about him last week, he said he's got a lot to learn, but that he's improving at a really rapid rate. That's what happens when you have, a high level mental capacity like Pline does. This guy was a, mechanical engineering major, and no NFL playbook is going to seem complicated if you're a mechanical engineering major. So he's got the mental horsepower, and he's got great size. Latu is probably the best all-around athlete of these tight ends outside of Kittle. He's big. He's 6'5". He's 250. He's a former linebacker. He moves well. Saubert, when I watch Saubert, he's a little bit of an all-around guy as well. I mean, he's got big upper body development. He looks like the kind of guy that's strong in the upper body, but he's also got skills as a returner. So Cam Inman seems to believe that either Braden Willis, Eric Saubert, or Cam Latu are likely to be that tight end 2, with Werner moving on and Dwelly moving on. Those guys were the backup tight ends this year. I'll go as far as to say I think Pline for sure gets in there. I think Pline is going to wind up, the fact that he's improving dramatically and that he doesn't really look like a basketball player. He's got that upper body strength, and he's clearly worked on his upper body strength in the weight room. I think Pline is going to be their number 2 tight end, to be honest. But I think then it's really up to the next 3 guys, Willis and Saubert. I guess Tungs you could throw in there as well, and Latu, to battle for maybe one spot. And, Cam believes it's going to be Braden Willis. I'll say this. Last year, Braden Willis made some amazing catches where he laid out, with his body parallel to the ground like an NFL wide receiver and made diving catches. You just don't see tight ends make those kinds of catches. But then you look at Willis and you say, well, what is he as a blocker? He looks a little bit, he's shaped more like a fullback. He's a shorter guy with shorter arms, and he looks like a fullback. And he may not be the most natural inline blocker. He looks like a receiving tight end who has the look of a fullback. Now, Latu looks like a full-fledged NFL tight end that could blow people off the line or be used as a receiver. Pline looks like a receiver who's going to, might be able to get by as a blocker, but he's going to be more of a passable blocker than he is like a full-time blow you off the ball kind of run blocking force. Like when you watch George Kittle, he's a force against the run. He can knock guys back. He can blow defensive linemen off the ball. He's really good as a run blocker. And Werner was a try-hard run blocker, right? He kept those legs churning, and he was always driving. And obviously they're going to miss that. But this is going to be a really good competition because really there's only one spot that's guaranteed, and it's George Kittle's. And after that, maybe they'll take 2 tight ends. Maybe they'll take 3. Maybe they'll take 4. Maybe they'll bring in another veteran to compete. If not, you're looking at Braden Willis, who's improved dramatically from year 1 to year 2. Cam Latu, who Brian Fleury's expecting to improve dramatically from year 1 to year 2. Eric Saubert, who definitely, when I talked to Fleury about Saubert, he's like, he's impressive. He can do a little bit of everything. So he's another guy that, might be able to help them both as a receiver and as a run blocker. And then there's Jake Tongues, and I think Tongues is probably the back of the depth chart, to be honest, at this spot. But it is interesting. So Cam Inman says he thinks Braden Willis, based on the people that he's talking to, is going to be that tight end 2, or at least making a strong push for it. I think Latu is going to be the most improved player in camp, and I think Mason Pline's going to be one of the surprises of camp. And then don't sleep on Eric Saubert. My guess is that they're going to wind up, because they're going to wind up taking some extra players at other spots, that they may go with just 3 tight ends and not 4 this year. So if I had to guess who it would be, my guess it would be Mason Pline, George Kittle, and either Latu or Willis, but not both. That would be my guess. And it sounds like Cam's guessing that it's going to be Willis, and maybe he's hearing good things about Willis. I think all these guys are going to fight it out in preseason, and it should be a really, really good competition. But once again, if I was making the pick, I would probably say Latu bounces back in year 2 with a much better camp, and he gets a spot. Kittle obviously gets a spot, and I'm going to say Pline gets a spot over Willis. But maybe they'll keep 4. Maybe they'll keep Willis and Pline. And it's going to be a really, really fun competition to watch every day in Santa Clara coming up in 49er training camp in July. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.